miracles taking place right here today, including, yeah, the microphone works. And the air conditioning finally is catching up. It's been on for hours now, and we're finally experiencing a little cooling. It's funny, I got a text this morning from Reverend Debbie, who, used to work with Reverend Maddie, and she moved off to Minnesota. And so her text was, "Oh, we're enjoying the San Diego weather. It's so wonderful." And I'm like, yeah, I wish, send it back. We want it back again. It's been pretty hot, but it's a holiday, right? So happy Labor Day weekend, everyone. And I know that everyone here right now has been a worker, right? So we can celebrate the fruits of our labors today, and it doesn't matter what kind of work you had or have, whether it's, really a lot of things we do in our life fall under the category of work. So it could be something as simple as washing a dish, that's called work, or, there's a lot of work that's a lot more complicated and demanding, everything from making hay, driving a truck, or helping your kid with math homework. All these things can be pretty complex, or maybe some people have jobs of inventing things like cell phones. That's pretty complicated too. And it's great when you love your work and when your work feels like play. There was a book that I read once I was so inspired by. It was called Do What You Love and the Money Will Follow, something like that. And I thought, wow, this is great. But I have to say, from my own experience, it's not always exactly like that. Sometimes work feels like work. And that's just all there is to it. But still, we can enjoy the fruits of our labor, whether they were hard to achieve or easy to achieve, whether we love doing it, we can still enjoy it and appreciate it. And so I love the whole idea of celebrating Labor Day as a day to rest and a day to reflect and give thanks for all the work that so many people over the years have done to bring us to this moment, to bring our society to this moment where we can appreciate all the fruits of the labor from so many people, including ourselves. So, of course, Labor Day talk. I had to look up Labor Day. And so I found out a couple of interesting things. It's held in the beginning of September, and it's also, that's true for Canada too. Instead of like the rest of much of the world where they have a May Day celebration. So our government, whoever was in charge at the time, thought, oh, May Day, that's celebrating labor unrest. We don't want to have a May Day holiday. Let's have a September holiday. That's right between Independence Day and Thanksgiving, and everybody will be ready for a holiday. Plus, the weather's always good. That was one of the reasons. A lot of sunshine the first weekend in September. So, boy, were they right. But, for us, it's the end of summer. It's a good time to pause and reflect. But the reality is we're celebrating Labor Day actually because of the labor movement, right? I mean, however we got to this point in our lives, whatever we think about the labor movement, as a minister, I don't know, or maybe it has nothing to do with the minister. I do enjoy history, and I find it interesting that the labor movement came into its own, became recognized right about at the very same time that the New Thought movement was coming coming into its own and being recognized, and other spiritual movements too. It was a time of great change. It was right after the Industrial Revolution, the building of the railroads, right after the gold rush, right after the Civil War, during a time of westward expansion and homesteading. And it was also, unfortunately, the time of really the last Indian Wars that were taking place here. It was a time when so many immigrants were coming to America that the population of this country actually doubled in only 30 years, between 1860 and 1890. That's hard to imagine, isn't it, doubling in 30 years? A real time of change. Change that took place not only in people's lives, but in how people saw themselves. And you know, I'm sure you've often heard it said that America is based on an idea. And whatever your political philosophy may be, Americans agree that this is a land of freedom and liberty. And we all think that, whatever form it may take. So back at this time, people were becoming aware of their rights, aware that they were free and had a right to self-determination. And at the very same time, there was a big struggle going on for land, for resources, for power, for wealth. You know, this was the era of the Vanderbilts, the Carnegies, the Rockefellers. It was their heyday. And I just want to take 1 year, the year of 1886, because it's a very significant year, I think, in our teaching. In 1886, that's the year that Geronimo was captured. 1886, that's the year when Wyatt Earp finally came to San Diego and opened not just one, but 4 gambling saloons. And in 1886, it was the year when there were many, many people working in factories. And so in the city of Chicago, factory workers were earning 15 cents an hour, working 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, and you can kind of imagine how the labor movement began, because people didn't want to work that hard for so little. And so that was when, a time when the 8-hour movement was kind of coming into being, and workers were complaining about their conditions. So during that year in Chicago, there were a lot of strikes and rallies and even violence. And you can read about it if you want to look up Haymarket Affair. But eventually things calmed down. And these ideas were incorporated into our society. And I found it interesting that it wasn't really a matter of the government making laws. Laws about workers' rights didn't really even come in until the early 1900s or almost 1940, before we got child labor laws and minimum wages and worker safety rules. So we could actually say that it was society itself that was beginning to wake up. Even the owners of factories were beginning to wake up and create better conditions for workers. And I just really wanted to point that out because, our lives are built on the foundation of our predecessors, the people that have gone before us. And I think it's right to recognize them and to give thanks for the good that finally has come out of it. But at this time of change in the day-to-day world, these workers who are doing all kinds of things. I mean, when you think of Labor Day, that's the type of worker that you think of. people doing manual labor, people building things. But at the same time, there was another group of workers, another type of work going on that I think we also need to stop and give thanks for. And these were the spiritual workers and healers. Because in the very same year, 1886, in the very same city, Chicago, that's the year that the first students graduated from Emma Hopkins Theological College in Chicago. And it was about the time that the founders of Unity, Myrtle and Charles Fillmore, were also graduating from that institute. And they founded Unity, and it spread. And at the very same time, Melinda Kramer, who founded Divine Science, another new thought teaching, that's when they started the College of Divine Science in San Francisco. So there was a great upwelling, a great expansion of these ideas that were taking place at the very same time. Now, the founder of religious science, Ernest Holmes, he was much younger. He came later, but he was greatly influenced by these New Thought pioneers, and much of our teaching has evolved from their teaching. So, when we think about the Centers for Spiritual Living, and we think about Unity and the other New Thought denominations, it's interesting to me. It's always been interesting to me. Why isn't it a bigger movement? Oh, today it's so hot and it's a holiday that quite a few people stayed home and stayed cool today. But the fact is, our center is fairly typical in size of a center for spiritual living. There are much smaller ones, and there are vastly larger ones. But when you think about what we're actually doing, what work we're engaged in, we don't measure our success by money or size any more than you would measure a library's success by how big the library was or how rich the library was. You would measure it by how many books they were putting into circulation, right? I mean, that's the purpose of a library. And so I measure and look at our teaching not as how many people come on Sunday being the measure, but as how many ideas are we putting out into circulation? How have these ideas that really originated through New Thought, how have these ideas spread out into the world? And we know that you see, positive thinking. I look at Facebook, and there are so many, at least for me, I mostly just see positive cartoons and pictures about, have a great day, today's the best day in your life, just, recognize that you're a spiritual being and that your life will outpicture according to your thoughts. Things like that, those are ideas, and they're now pervasive. They're available everywhere. Everyone doesn't agree with them, but those ideas are out and around. They're in circulation. They're available to people. And in reality, it was never, at least to begin with, it was not the goal or the vision of Ernest Holmes to even start a church. He just wanted to promote the ideas, spread the ideas. But it was his students who said, no, we want to have a church of our own. We want to have a spiritual home where we're sharing these ideas. We want to have communities where we can get together and support each other in learning more about these principles and in following the ideas. And so it evolved. The work of the early religious scientists has laid the foundation for this center, for what we have today at our center. And really, I think we have at least two things going on here. And it's true for all of the centers. And the first is community. Because this is really our spiritual home, our community where we can come together and help each other and support each other. And I know that some people are still watching us on the internet instead of coming physically, but it is a community where we can feel welcome no matter what our story has been. We're all welcome. It works. This place works because of everyone who has brought it into being. You know, it's the group atmosphere that each person here today and each person who has come over the past 33 years. It's the group atmosphere, the work that all of these people, we people, have put in that has made it so it feels so satisfying to actually come here and be together. And so I want to say thank you. You know, when we talk about Labor Day, I want to say thank you. Thank you to everyone here. Thank you to the people who are not here but will be watching us on the internet. Thank you to the people who are coming next week or when it cools off. The second thing we're doing here, of course, is teaching and learning and practicing how to actually use spiritual principles in our lives. So you might not realize that, or you might, that every single practitioner and every single minister started just like you, sitting in a chair, maybe watching, or maybe reading the Science Mind magazine, or finding a book about New Thought, noticing an advertisement, or maybe even recently finding us on the internet. And that was the spark. And then gradually we have evolved from just being watchers to being participants, students. And then some of us got the calling to be teachers also, or practitioners. And so together, whatever your role is, we have created this work, this place, not this physical place, but this atmosphere of good. So, this Labor Day, I want to suggest that we just pause and reflect not only on our physical labor and challenges of ourselves and other people that have brought us, but I also want you to recognize the other type of work that you are engaged in. Recognize that while you're going through your everyday, day-to-day life, you're also a light worker. So the first time I heard the expression light worker, I was like, oh my gosh, that is, what a dumb expression. I'm just being honest. But gradually I thought, well, you know, there's some truth to that saying, you know, because when you have this atmosphere, like we have this communal atmosphere, but each of us also has our individual atmosphere of just of kindness and belief and of knowing that there is good for us, that there is good possible for everyone, that we live in a world that really already works for everyone. It's just a matter of us realizing it and becoming more conscious of how to make it work in the way that we would like it to work, because it is always working. So, what I thought I'd like to end on sort of is maybe, I don't know if you're all seeing yourself this way, but I'd like to invite you to just visualize, to do a visualization exercise with me. So I'm going to invite you, if you want, to just close your eyes for a moment. We'll do an imaginary visualization. So close your eyes and just imagine a small baby, an infant, surrounded by light. Kind of surrounded by an egg-shaped form of light, radiating out, surrounding that baby. And then imagine that that baby is you yourself. See yourself as an infant, surrounded by light, and imagine that this is the light of life, the light of love that came with you when you were born. This beautiful, beautiful light of love. Now imagine that this baby, you as an infant, imagine yourself as a teenager or a young adult, how you have grown, how your body has just stretched out with long legs and long arms, and see that this light still surrounds you and envelops you and radiates out from you. This teenager, this young adult, still enveloped in light, enveloped in love. Even though as a teenager you might have been busy and active and not paying attention, it always has been there. Now imagine yourself, create a picture of yourself as you are today, right here in this room, and visualize that you are still surrounded by this beautiful light. This light within you, the inner light, and the light radiating out from you. We feel it sometimes even as heat radiating out. But it is love, and it is energy, and it is life, and it is always surrounding us and supporting us. And just have a vision of yourself. And notice what this light seems like now, today. Is it as strong and radiant as the first visualization of yourself as an infant? Is it that strong? Does it seem perhaps fainter? Now is the time, because we're working completely with our imagination. Change your visualization. Use your imagination to brighten that light, to extend it outwards from you, and recognize it as that light emanating from you. That light within you, that very same light that you brought with you when you were born, is with you in full strength right now. When you're ready, just open your eyes. So here we are. I wanted to share that visualization with you because I wanted you to see yourself as I see you, as light workers. I wanted you to recognize in yourself what I recognize in you, that everywhere you go, whoever you contact, whatever you come into relationship with in any way, this light, your inner light, is at work. That's what it means to be a light worker. You, everyone in here, I know it to be true, brings good happiness and joy wherever you go. This is the truth. And so happy Labor Day. I want to just celebrate you, us, and say, keep up the good